Record. Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Tuesday evening. And last week we started on getting back to basics, basically, where all of our health starts with a cell. And if your cell is not a healthy cell or happy camper, you're not going to be very healthy or happy either. So the key to good health is to make sure you have good cells. And we found out last week that the problem started way back in the 1800s with the invention of the steel roller mill, which essentially took care of or was able to be really, really effective at crushing up wheat. Unfortunately, by being so effective at crushing up the wheat, it also got rid of the bran and the wheat germ, which is where all your fiber and your minerals and your vitamins actually sit. So what we got was some very nice tasting starch or sugar, for want of any better terminology. And we lost all the good stuff, because what happened was they would then ditch the good stuff and send it off for cattle food. So the end result was the cattle looked healthier than the farmer. And sadly, that is still the case today. Today, it's a lot more about commercialization. And as we all know, you can't make a profit from moldy bread because not too many people want to buy it. So the fresh bread that you bought today, you would probably still want to be able to eat that fresh bread on Friday. But if it has true whole grains with the correct oils in it, by Thursday, you're not going to be able to eat it because it will have gone rancid and will have become very healthy bread because it's probably now sprouting penicillin in the form of mold. So we're going to carry on with this little chat, and I'm going to share my screen. Now, I ended off just before the part where where we got to the part where they were dealing with athletes, because first of all, they started their research on Hollywood stars. And Hollywood stars, you would think, would have a good diet. And they did. They had the best diets available. Unfortunately, it was the best processed diets available. And the result was that they never had any energy. They were healthy, but they never had any energy. So we're going to pick up on this brief history of where our health started failing, because the next test that they did was they were checking out a group of athletes. Get this going over here. So the athletic studies, we'll start off with this little picture of the cell over here, where, as you can see with your cell wall, you need to get nutrients in here through this part here. And as I always describe, it's a bit like if your cell is not I'm getting feedback over there. Ansi, can you mute? Thank you. It's a bit like climbing into a shower with a raincoat on. You might get slightly wet, but you're not going to get properly clean. Some parts of you might get a bit of water on, some parts of you might get a bit clean, but your whole body is not really going to get clean properly. Now, take off the rain suit and climb into the shower, and you will be a lot more successful in getting clean. Now, our cells work the same way. If your cells are not able to absorb nutrients, process out the correct nutrition, and get rid of the waste, they're not going to be able to function correctly. So the key over here is to make sure that your body can utilize what you're eating. Because remember, diet is what you eat, nutrition is what your body absorbs. So the athletic studies were done at the Iowa State College football team in 1957. And they were one of the first people to be involved with these tests. Now, the coach, Beryl Taylor, had the players taking as many as 44 pills a day from the beginning of the season in order to let them assimilate all the value of their food and build up their bodies. That was a lot of product back then. The football team had a dismal record of 2 wins and 8 losses the previous year, and a 4-4-1 tie record while on the supplements. So there was a slight improvement, but not a big improvement. And the coach said that pills helped the players build up their ability to use all the food they got through eating. Most people don't assimilate the protein, iodine, and other minerals and vitamins they get in food. Remember, you eat, but if you can't process it, you're wasting. Following year, a new trainer with the name of Warren Ariel continued the supplement program, although he had the manufacturer of the pills concentrate them. So the athletes had to take only 1 pill per meal. It was then observed that the supplement program had both a psychological and a physiological effect on the players. Some players wouldn't play unless they had their pills. And there's some athletes today who feel the same way. They won't play unless they've had their nutrition. The Cleveland Browns were the first professional football team to support their game with supplementation. The University of Iowa masterminded the supplement program, and it was estimated that the team consumed about 30,000 pills. This was before the supplements were concentrated. We won't get into that history just yet, but understand that what we now know as Formula 4 in a single capsule back then was a concoction of about 4 or 5 different capsules to get the same effect. The newspaper reported, "What has happened may be the greatest transformation since lovable Dr. Jekyll mixed himself that hot martini." The Browns, who were offered condolences during the exhibition season, now are jumping with vitamins and pushing people around. Leah Murphy, in charge of the supplement program, said, "If you remember last year, we kept letting down in the second half. This year, we seem to get stronger." Other athletic studies were done, including examination of wrestling and basketball teams. The purpose behind these studies was to determine if the healthiest part of the population would derive any benefit from supplementation. And I can attest to this part as well, because I take some supplements before I go for my run on a Saturday morning at Park Run. And they start to kick in fairly quickly, but I can really feel the effect on my return run. So after the halfway mark, or from about the halfway mark, they've really kicked in, and that's when I start to feel extra good. The work on athletes indicated that many male athletes were low in androgen output. This made it more difficult to build muscle and to rebuild torn down muscle. The athletes were also using reserves of protein rather than carbohydrates for energy production. The researchers found that use of essential lipids in large amounts was helpful when these imbalances were taking place. Time is a factor in responding to lipid supplementation. Most of the younger men noticed an improvement in 4 weeks and were restored to normal functioning after about 2 months of supplementation. Older athletes took much longer, 6 months or longer, to optimize physical functioning. One reporter wrote, "In every case studied by the 4 tests chosen, at least one of 4 metabolic functions was found deficient. Very young men and boys tended to improve rapidly, while older men, there was a definite time lag, because essentially what had happened was that they'd used up a lot more energy and they'd lost a lot more muscle, so they had more to go to repair themselves." Many athletes were able to summon energy for a hard game, but were depleted afterwards. Second stress following quickly might have done severe damage. And this is what they were finding as well in even newer, younger athletes, was that, and this is also what happens with commercialized sport, is that the athletes have to put on their best game this Saturday and they get injured. But they have to put on their best game again next Saturday because they're getting paid for the sponsors. So they don't really have time to recover in time to play the next best game. So the first couple of games of the season are generally good, and then they start getting injured. And that becomes expensive all around. Whereas if they can maintain their strength, maintain their recovery, and have a quick recovery, they can make a season without too much pain and suffering. And this may account for the men who look perfectly healthy today, but are seriously ill tomorrow. Researchers emphasized that there was a universal need for fundamental nutrition with virtually everyone they tested. Vitamins and minerals were not enough. It was presumed that higher intake of supplements might be required for people who are not well than for those who are healthy, if one wanted to see an improvement. So if you are getting a balanced diet, if you are healthy, you don't need a lot of supplements. You just need to fill in the gaps of what you're not getting in your diet. But if you're an athlete or you're ill, you need to have a lot more. Somebody once said, it's a little bit like if you think about the army. In peace times, the army practices and they fire off rounds at the shooting range. In war, they fire off significantly more rounds than they do during practice. Same thing happens in our bodies. If you are healthy and you're not putting excess stress on your system, then you don't need a lot of supplements. If you are healthy but putting a lot of stress on your system, you need a lot more supplements. I hope that makes some sense. One report observed an important point. College athletes who received a supplement without the lipid concentrate reported early that they felt a lot more energetic, and many of them were raring to go. Biochemical testing showed, however, that as far as the 4 basic tests went, they were making no improvement. They were not using proteins or energy foods sufficiently well to keep their muscles in repair and plenty of energy coming through. They also lacked the real definitive factor in meeting stress, whether on the playing field or in business, and that is endurance. The 1987 study focused on the ability of TreaNN to contribute to overall growth, cardiovascular development, and nutrient utilization efficiency. Think of your car, and you're driving along, but the oil filter is dirty, the air filter is dirty and blocked, your spark plugs are dirty, you're not going to really get up Fields Hill or any other steep hill without using significant amounts of fuel. And we have the same issue. And TreaNN improved the nutrient utilization efficiency by 50%. So imagine we could give our cars TreaNN and improve our fuel consumption by 50%. I think we would have a lot of people looking for these products. We just need to show them that they can do it in their bodies as well. Overall growth and cardiovascular development were substantially improved. Once again, we have our little picture of the cell. Oops, let me get my face out of the way. In the final analysis, the research which led to the development of TreaNN revealed that the fundamental unit of life involved with the development of degenerative disease was individual cells. Meynell wrote, many reports from many sources indicate beyond doubt that acute diseases and organic diseases and senile degeneracies are all cellular diseases. And there is almost as extensive agreement that the basic condition which makes cells vulnerable is inadequate nutrition. Meynell then goes on to explain why the membrane of the cell is the critical component most seriously affected by poor nutrition. Failure of this structure will impact the health of the rest of the cell. Body cells are enclosed by a bonding membrane. This membrane must permit needed nutrients to pass through into the interior. It must keep out metabolites in the blood not needed by that cell. This means that in some way not understood, cell walls exercise discrimination. The same kind of organic judgment must control the escape of worn-out substances. Only fractions no longer usable can be allowed to pass through into the vascular blood. The third function is to regulate the quantity of water in the cell. Nutrients contained in threonine oils play a key role in maintaining the proper functioning of these lipid membranes. These three functions performed by cell bonding membranes are believed to be mediated by two different classes or subdivisions of the lipid or oil family. An essential unsaturated fatty acid in the form of a phospholipid interacts with a sterol derived from the non-saponifiable, in other words, incapable of being made into soap, fraction of such food oils as those in cereal germs. Both of these lipids often are in short supply in modern diets. Why? Because they've been stripped out in order to keep the products fresher for longer. So they might keep the products fresher, but they don't keep us fresher. The steroid portion is especially subject to shortage because of filtering of germ oils to improve the appearance and prevent spoilage. The implications are staggering. Therefore, right here at the outer boundary of body cells, we discover a threat to sustained health at all ages. This is the kind of stealthy and hidden continuing factor easily overlooked. The cell-supporting lipids were slipped away out of the modern diet, all the eye-evading speed a magician uses with card tricks. It was there, and it was gone. Nobody realized it. Few modern men and women, even few physicians, realize that a profound change in diet has taken place and that it may account in large measure for the change in disease pattern so futilely speculated upon. Both cell nutrition and cell elimination are being bottlenecked. So all life processes are being slowed down to the danger point. The early research conducted at Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital has not deteriorated in significance over time. Modern research has only underlined the importance of cell membrane function and the lipid composition for overall health and longevity. Dr. Bruce Lipton performed pioneering studies at Stanford's University School of Medicine. And he writes, "I believe that when you understand how the chemical and physical structure of the cell's membrane works, you'll start calling it, as I do, the magical membrane." Well, this thing keeps popping up. So our famous threonine, which is unique to our company, cell membranes need lipids and sterols to stay healthy. And unfortunately, the grain processing strips lipids, sterols, and other vital nutrients from the foods that make up our dietary staples. Threonine grain concentrates help assure good nutrition at the cellular level by providing a unique and exclusive blend of whole food extracts from wheat germ, rice bran, and soybeans. Developed and introduced by Neolife in 1958, threonine was the world's first phytonutrient supplement, and to date, still the only one. It provides phytolipids essential to optimal health and cellular function, including omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids and phytosterols, which include the beta-sitosterol, the gamma-oryzanol, stigmasterol, and camptosterol, plus octacosanol. Please don't get hung up on these big fancy words. The scientists know these things. They've put them in threonine. That's all we need to know. But why the grain concentrates? Because as grain processing strips away nutrient-dense and nutrient-diverse outer layers, the foods that make up our dietary staples, in other words, white flour, white rice, often lack meaningful amounts of nutrients that are important for cell function, namely the lipids and sterols. Soybeans, wheat, and rice provide key lipids and sterols that are important for cellular health. And these three grains are found in various amounts in every diet on this planet. And that is why they've used these three specific ones. The diverse phytonutrient extracts supply essential nutrients, and the cells need to be their healthy best. And they need to support efficient nutrient utilization. They need to support overall cardiovascular growth and development. They are cold processed and to preserve the nutritional value. There is no cholesterol in treonine. It is a complete lipid and sterol from wheat germ, rice bran, and soybeans. And it includes the beta-sitosterol, the gamma oryzanol, and all these other funny big words. The soft gelatin capsules with plant-based chlorophyll color, which is why it's green, just by the way. And they also add vitamin E for antioxidant protection of the phytonutrients. To increase their shelf life, grains are subjected to about 24 processes before they are transformed into dietary staples, such as white flour and white rice. And this processing removes the nutritious outer layers of the grain. These layers contain the majority of grains, vitamins, and minerals, as well as good fats called lipids and sterols. Other foods, notably soybeans, provide healthy lipids and sterols as well. In the 1950s, a series of studies conducted at a Southern California hospital indicated that people suffering from chronic fatigue could benefit dramatically from a mixture of plant extracts providing the broad spectrum lipids and sterols. Now, over 6 decades later, that mixture, which we know as Neolife's treonine, is still helping people worldwide. It forms the base into which vitamins and related food factors, minerals, enzymes, and protein have been added to create the Neolife's multi-factor food supplement we know as Formula 4. And that's where the 4 comes from, because it's minerals, enzymes, protein, and vitamins. The world's first phytonutrient supplement, treonine, provides plant lipids and sterols, which food processing is stripped, and that form the foundation of our daily diets. And it's named from the Greek 3-in-1 and is a unique combination of concentrated extracts from whole wheat berry, rice bran, and soybeans. And it is more than just wheat germ or soy oil. It contains everything naturally available from the lipid portion of the plants. And this is what puts it into a completely different class on its own. Move me out of the way again. Lipids and sterols are the building blocks for every cell membrane in the body. And when it comes to health, not all fats are bad. We often get told that fats are bad. Some fats are good, even essential, because the fats provide energy, essential fatty acids, and cellular building blocks, and they also have regulatory functions, sort of like a robot. For instance, fats are necessary for normal growth and development. They're also important to the structure and function of the nervous system. But most importantly, they make up the greater part of the membranes that surround every cell in the human body. Healthful lipids and sterols from wheat, rice, and soy are good fats. Certain lipids, including the omega-6 and 3, may increase the fluidity or pliability of cell membranes and help keep cells functioning normally. Plant sterols may have a number of beneficial effects and may support the proper functioning of the cardiovascular system. Both lipids and sterols are located in the bran and outer layers, which are removed during grain processing. And for all of these actions, there are always consequences. With consumer preferences shifting to low-fat and fat-free foods, people are eating less fat than in recent years, although the fat content of the Western diet is still far from the 30% recommended by health experts. While reducing the fat content of the diet has many positive health consequences, it means that people are reducing the total lipids and sterols they're taking in from all sources, not just bad fats, such as saturated fats. They're also reducing the intake of good fats from whole grains and soya, which supply the important lipid and sterol nutrients you need to feel your best. In the quest to reduce the fat content of the diet, fat substitutes, or fake fats, have begun to make their way into the marketplace. While these substances may make some foods less fatty and lower in kilojoules, they do absolutely nothing to meet the body's hunger for good nutrition. While whole food lipids and sterols from wheat, rice, and soy will be especially important for the growing group of people who use fat substitutes to reduce the fat content of their diets. There's a whole new market for us to look at. The decrease in total fat consumption is only part of the reason the modern diet features an imbalance of good and bad fats. The other part of the story is that the foods that make up the human diet have changed dramatically in the last 50 years. As artificial fats have increasingly displaced natural fats in the foods we eat, the lipid and sterol profile of the diet has changed. While our hunter-gatherer ancestors consumed a diversity of natural fats, mostly from locally gleaned plants, this diversity decreased when people became successful at growing agricultural crops, which could be sold at the local farmers market. This eroding nutrient diversity was compounded by a decrease in nutrient density when people discovered that grains could be stored longer without going rancid if their lipid and sterol-rich outer coatings were removed. And after World War II, the world got its first taste of margarine and other artificially hydrogenated oils. The global kitchen has never been the same since. This relatively rapid displacement of natural fats with artificial fats in all types of foods has created an unhealthy imbalance of good versus bad fats and has diminished the amount and variety of healthy lipids and sterols in the diet. The imbalance has consequences. Namely, the insufficiency of lipids and sterols may cause alterations of the cell membrane, leading to reduced cellular efficiency throughout the body. That's that tired, listless feeling. It may also affect the ability of the cell's metabolic machinery to produce energy. Lipid sterol insufficiency may also slow the normal workings of the endocrine glands, which virtually control the body's energy levels. For these reasons, insufficiency of lipids and sterols may be a factor in long-term fatigue. And as we know, our bodies are composed of trillions of cells which must work efficiently if we are to stay healthy. But how do they stay healthy? As we've been told, as we've gone through this, we've seen that the key is their membranes. Like bodies, the cells must take in nutrients and eliminate waste. Every cell in the body is surrounded by a lipid membrane with the discretionary power to allow only needed nutrients to enter the cell. By the same token, it allows only waste material and metabolic products like hormones, enzymes, neurotransmitters, etc., to exit. Deficiencies of lipids, sterols, and amino acids can compromise the discretionary power of cells. Cells can become starved, inhibited in their ability to take in substances, even though the nutrients are available. So we are starving while surrounded by an abundance of food. And cells can become constipated, just like we do. And this is inhibited in the ability to eliminate accumulating waste products or export metabolites. You know how you feel when you are constipated? Well, your cells are all the time. Under these conditions, cells work inefficiently, expending more energy than healthy cells would to get the same results. Treonine grain concentrates supply essential lipids and sterols to promote the efficient functioning of cells. Remember, we are only as healthy as our cells, and treonine strengthens the lipid-sterol link in our chain of life, supporting cellular health and vitality. That is where we're going to end tonight. Stop sharing. There we go. There we go. Does anybody have any questions or comments before I stop the recording?